And we welcome you back to the starting lineup, and it's great to have you with us on a beautiful Thursday. Starting lineup is brought to you by Play It Again Sports in the Fremont Shopping Center, Battlefield in Fremont, Springfield. Great place, folks. You can't go wrong at Play It Again Sports. By Swing Right Golf at the south end of Campbell Avenue, a little bit north of Nixa. Hey, you have the simulator there. You can play Pebble Beach. You can play the Augusta National right there on the simulator. And, of course, the batting cages outside. Big way to relax at Swing Right Golf. Brought to you by Citizens Bank of Rogersville with two locales, one adjacent to Highland Springs and the other in Rogersville itself. And by Marshfield Chevrolet with the I-44 exit. A couple of left turns, you cross over I-44 and you're on that outer road on the north side, and you drive right into Marshfield Chevrolet. I'm Ned Reynolds along with
Maddox Fedosovich.
Art Hains.
And Art Hains is visiting with us and here for the rest of the show. And Arthur, good morning to you. We had on, I hope you were listening, Paul Hansen just a short time ago from Southwest Baptist. He's the head football coach. And he was recalling a day that you had gone over there to speak at something, maybe 2017, there being Parkview High School. Do you remember that at all?
Yeah, I occasionally would go over for their career days.
That was it. Career days.
Yeah, visit with some classes.
Well, Paul said, Art may or may not have realized it, but the young man from University of Arkansas who is now going into the NBA was right there listening to you, and you had
Trevon Brazile?
Trayvon Brazile was right there, and I said, yeah, Art had so much influence on him, he transferred to Kickapoo. Well, we do have a special guest with us, and this is, being a lover of baseball history and sports history for that matter, this is really a lot of fun. Terry Lemons, folks, is a former news leader reporter, has taken a rather interesting career because he's morphed it with sports and politics. And, Terry, that is never a big winning mix at all.
Both hard-hitting topics.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Tell us a little bit about where Terry Lemons has been recently since you left the news leader.
Yeah, so my journey started out at Mizzou after growing up in St. Louis. I wound up at the Springfield News Leader back in the late 80s. And after that, went to Little Rock, where there was this guy named Bill Clinton. And I got in on the ground floor of covering his presidential campaign. And after the 1992 election, got sent off to D.C., had a ringside seat for a lot of interesting things going on, checked all of my journalism boxes, and then the babies started arriving. My wife is from Bolivar, and basically we had to make a decision. I ended up going into public relations for the government, everybody's favorite agency, the IRS. And I spent 25 years there. Boy, I could tell you some stories about that. But I retired from government last year, and I wanted to return to my roots for writing, and that's what the genesis was for this book. My lifelong passion for the Cardinals and baseball really, came together looking at the 1926 World Series.
Maddox?
Of course, you're a baseball fan, Terry, and that's how you got into this project. But specifically, what got you into the 1926 World Series?
It was a combination of factors. Number one, I knew a couple of years ago that the 100th anniversary was coming up. And I also had a good friend of mine who grew up in St. Louis, also a reporter, about 20 years older than me. And he had terminal cancer. And he gave me his collection of Cardinal history books. And as I was flipping through them, I was seeing little nuggets about how the city reacted to the 1926 World Series, just little hints of it. And I thought, I think there's more of a story there. And when I started looking into it, the whole culture of baseball, not just in St. Louis, but across Missouri and in Southwest Missouri, it all started back in 1926 in this amazing World Series.
Arthur?
Scott Purrier shares with us that in 1926, there were huge throngs of fans on the square in Springfield following the games. Of course, this is really before radio even, but they'd have a big scoreboard and post the scores, and people were following it that way. So it extended to Springfield for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. This was one of the interesting things for me about 1926. Not only was it a dramatic 7-game series between the Cardinals and the Yankees, you also had several technology changes coming together. Radio was becoming much more common. Roughly 10% of the country had radio at the time. But baseball and the World Series was also a community gathering event. And newspapers across a big swath of the country had these things called electric scoreboards that they would put up outside their buildings or in a prominent place in town. And state after state had these massive gatherings. Springfield actually had the second biggest crowd gathering in the whole state, more than Kansas City. They had 8,000 people gathered to watch the World Series results for Game 7. And that was centered right around McDaniel and Jefferson. So in that, classic downtown area, but 8,000 people, they were on rooftops watching the scores of the game being posted.
And Terry, I assume it's quite possible that there were no radio stations here in the area that people could listen?
I'm not sure about that one. It was in St. Louis, there was a real competition with it. There were, 3 stations, the old KSD affiliate, 550 AM, actually had the play-by-play of the game, and 2 other stations in town, including KMOX, which Cardinal fans know well. They were actually kind of reading off the Associated Press results that were coming in over telegraph. But in terms of Springfield, I can't tell you. I think there were radio stations. I know, KWTO was around very early.
Should have been, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so my suspicion is the radio stations down there were tracking, just given how much energy there was around the World Series.
Now, KWTO and KGBX both came in the early 30s, I think. So,
was it
a little bit after that?
Terry, This is because I live a sheltered life. I was looking at some of the box scores from the 1926 World Series, and I found this to be a curious anomaly. The Yankees-Cardinals' first 2 games were in New York, drew 65,000 fans, as the Yankees always did. The final 2 games back at Yankee Stadium, and the crowds were considerably smaller. Do you know why that might have happened?
Yeah, it was the weather, Ned. The weather for Game 6 and 7, it was cold and gloomy. A lot of scalpers had bought tickets, but particularly with Game 7, they weren't sure if the game was going to be played or not. And there was a fog hanging over the city. It was cold and drizzly. And there was a big question going into the early afternoon whether they would play. They started the game a little later. They didn't want to run into Sunday church services for large parts of the country. And that's an interesting sidebar I get into a little bit in the book. But basically, the weather kept the crowds down at Yankee Stadium. And the fascinating thing for me was the Cardinals really emerged as the nation's team. And even in Yankee Stadium, really throughout the series, the Cardinals were getting a lot of applause and cheers. Rogers Hornsby's mother had died a couple days before the series started. So there was this really big wave of emotion supporting the Cardinals, and they were getting cheers even in the depths of Yankee Stadium.
Terry, one of the defining moments of this series was when Grover Cleveland Alexander went up against Tony Lazzeri. Tell us some of your findings about that moment.
Yeah, this was a fascinating piece. Grover Cleveland Alexander is really the big, well-known hero of the 1926 series. He's a guy in the 19-teens, pitched for the Philadelphia Phillies and was the most dominant pitcher of that era. He was averaging 27 wins a game. And then World War I comes off, and he goes off to France to command an artillery regiment. And he's standing right next to those big guns, ended up having hearing loss, and he starts having epileptic seizures after that. When he comes home after the war, he starts self-medicating by drinking. And I'm drinking a lot. So, Grover's got a drinking problem. He's with the Chicago Cubs in the summer of 1926. They have a rookie manager come in, and Grover, who's been drinking, doesn't like some of the manager's, player decisions. And the Cubs just finally have had it with him, and they just release the guy. Just flat out release him. And to Rogers Hornsby's credit and, Branch Rickey and the other Cardinal leadership, they recognized the guy could still pitch. And Hornsby wanted him. Cardinals picked him up. I mean, again, just like Lou Brock, a famous miscue by the Cubs. But anyway, Alexander wins game 2 at Yankee Stadium. He wins game 6 in Yankee Stadium to tie the series at 3 games apiece. And Grover drank quite a lot. So naturally, he went out to the bars after game 6. Hornsby told him to take it easy because he might be needed in relief. And sure enough, in game 7, the Cardinals had this knuckleballer, Jess Hains, second biggest winner in Cardinal history, on the mound. In the 7th inning, his knuckles start bleeding and the bases end up being loaded. He's lost control of his pitches. So a call goes out to the far left field bullpen. There's this fog hanging over the stadium and maybe a little bit of a fog hanging over Grover because he'd been drinking the night before. And in comes Grover to face Tony Lazzeri, push him up Lazzeri early in his career, young player, and you've got the wily veteran Alexander, and it sets up a classic matchup. So bases loaded, 2 outs, and Grover whips off a curveball just as famous as Adam Wainwright's curveball and strikes out Lazzeri in this crisis moment of the game. And the Cardinals escape the inning with a 3-2 lead, and Grover comes out and pitches the final 2 innings to have a save in Game 7, the day after winning Game 6 and the day after going out to the bars.
Amazing.
And Terry, you might share with us how the World Series ended.
This was another stunning element of the World Series from 1926. Babe Ruth was the most famous guy on the planet at that time. In Game 4, he ripped off 3 massive home runs at Sportsman's Park in St. Louis and added another one early in Game 7. There's 2 outs in the 9th inning. The Cardinals are up by a run. Alexander's on the mound, and he gets ahead of Ruth by a 1-2 count. The next 3 pitches are really close. The umpire ends up calling ball 4 on Ruth, so Ruth's at first base. He's got a guy at the plate now, Bob Musial, who hit Alexander well the next day, and Lou Gehrig is on deck. And Babe Ruth decided he was single-handedly going to try carrying the Yankees to victory, so he takes off for second base. And the Cardinal catcher, who was the MVP that year, Bob O'Farrell, unleashes this rifle shot to second base. Hornsby grabs the ball and tags Ruth out at second base for the final out of the series and the biggest, most colossal mistake of Babe Ruth's career.
Incredible. Utterly incredible. Terry, I think the key is, was that unusual for Ruth to try to steal a base?
He had stolen like 10 bases earlier in the season. He was a bit like Yadi Molina. He was an opportunistic stealer. But here's the thing. In Game 6, he had stolen a base off of O'Farrell, the catcher. So O'Farrell's radar had to be up at that point because, keep in mind, Babe was the mighty home run hitter, but he had a body like your dad, He was packing some extra weight. So, he was not a real fleet of foot. But O'Farrell was ready, and, they executed the play perfectly to end the World Series.
When it ended, was there any argument like that at second base, or did Ruth just leave the field?
Ruth just popped up and shaked Hornsby's hand there. He was quite the gentleman.
Good for him. Maddox?
Terry, in this project, what similarities did you see from baseball in 1926 to the current game?
The thing that really struck me was how fans react to the games. And if you look at how the whole region reacted to the Cardinals in the World Series, it was just like what I saw in Springfield in 1985 when the Cardinals played the Royals. It was just this massive outpouring. Everybody was paying attention. There were celebrations in the streets, just like in future World Series wins. There were boisterous parades in downtown St. Louis. 1926 and how the fans reacted really ended up being a blueprint for how people celebrated, over 100 years when the Cardinals would win a World Series.
Artur?
Well, and what form did those celebrations take? You mentioned parade, but how did that kind of set the tone?
There were a lot of spontaneous celebrations after Game 7. There was a massive one in downtown St. Louis that stretched on for like 9 or 10 hours, 100,000 people downtown. But also in towns across southern Missouri, there were just spontaneous, people going out in the streets, gathering in the town squares. There were parades. They were seeing celebrations like this in places as diverse as McSherrytown, Pennsylvania, where Bill Sherdell, one of the pitchers in the Cardinals series, that was his hometown. Up in Omaha, Nebraska, where Grover Cleveland Alexander's grew up and his mother was there, a band showed up at her house and started playing spontaneously. So there was just this huge outpouring of joy and support for the Cardinals knocking off the establishment Yankees. Even back in 1926, people didn't like the New York teams.
Terry, who played the role of Grover Cleveland Alexander? Do you remember?
Oh, this is one of my favorite things. So Grover had a fascinating personal story, and he has a unique place in history. He's named after a president, yep. Grover Cleveland. And in the movies in the 1950s, he was played by a future president, Ronald Reagan. Yeah. So, and actually it was regarded as one of Reagan's best movie performances. It's called The Winning Team. They took a few liberties with, what happened with Grover's career, but, you got Doris Day in a movie, so you can't go wrong.
No, you absolutely, you can't at all. Now, Terry, you feel, and I think I'm probably putting words in your mouth here, this was the beginning. This is the fuse that lit the Cardinals organization as one of the premier teams in Major League Baseball. Am I correct in assuming that?
Yeah, it really created the Cardinals dynasty. And if you look what happens over the next 20 years for the Cardinals, it is the golden era for the team. They go back and they win, something like 12 National League pennants over the next 20 years. And it really laid down this base for the region's obsession with baseball. And then you have radio starting to grow in the late 20s and early 30s, and then KMOX gets the clear channel capability. Mm-hmm. But 1926 really planted the seed that grew into what we still see today with the obsession around the Cardinals.
Maddox?
Terry, give us some more on Rogers Hornsby. You said that he had some tragedy happen to him and his family. His mother passed away before the series began. How did he handle that going into the series?
Yeah, his mother had been ill for a while. She lived in Austin, Texas. And several days before the series, word got to Hornsby that she was gravely ill and was not going to recover. So they're in New York waiting on the start of the World Series. They actually ended the regular season in New York, where they clinched the pennant on the final weekend of the series or the season. And Hornsby basically had a decision to make. Was he going to take a 30-hour train ride home to Austin to see his mother one last time, or was he going to stay with the team? And as he was agonizing over this, his mother actually passed away, and an uncle reached out. And, basically the family had been imploring Rogers to stay there and stay with the team. That was his mother's wishes. And they agreed to delay the funeral until after the World Series. Hornsby basically, skipped a practice, was talking to the press. All this is playing out in the headlines, but basically he was able to kind of put it past him. And when he walked up to bat for the first time in Yankee Stadium in Game 1, his applause was actually louder than Ruth there in New York.
Arthur?
Well, so Terry, really, if there were a Mount Rushmore of Cardinal players, and that would be quite tough to narrow down, but you'd have Musial and Pujols, probably Gibson and Rogers Hornsby.
Wow, that's really tough to get it narrowed down. I agree. Yeah, you got to put Musial, Gibson for sure. Gibson just got named to an all integration era team by the Sabre Group. Pujols is on there too. Boy, that fourth one's really tough. Hornsby had some amazing seasons. But look at these other players you've got, Brock and Molina. It's a really tough call. But Hornsby's he's definitely in the running. He had 4 years in the early 1920s when he batted over 400. if you can imagine that. 4 consecutive years.
Enos Slaughter and Kenny Boyer and the great, and the list just goes on and on of individuals who could have been there. Final question for you.
Mount Rushmore needs to add another peak for the Cardinals.
That's what they need. Terry, quick final question for you. The book itself, what do you call it, number 1, and number 2, when does it go on public sales?
It's called The Year St. Louis Became a Baseball Town. It's published by Arcadia Publishing. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It is available in retail locations, bookstores, at least in St. Louis. I don't know if it's made bookstores in Springfield yet. Came out in June. And, the other thing is my website is 1926baseball.com. If anybody's interested in a signed copy or a gift, hit me up on email. I can connect you up. But it is in some retail locations. A lot of people have been buying it on Amazon, though.
Now, after you have won the Pulitzer Prize for this book, are you going back to politics again?
I am done with politics, and I'm done with the IRS, thank gosh.
Yeah, we had a young guy a few years ago that tried to mix sports and politics in the Springfield market. It didn't end up going very well for him. For me, sports and baseball was always a refuge. And when I was at the News Leader, I didn't cover sports, but man, when you got home at night or, a night in the newsroom, it was really fun to track what was going on with baseball and, as Ned knows, high school football, things like that. Was
our partner on the show, Mr. Purrier, at the News Leader when you were there?
He got there right about the same time I was, and he may have been a smidge behind me, but we were young bucks back in the day. So anyway, Scott loved golf even back then,
and that's where he is right now, up in St. Louis. Terry, many, many thanks for taking time to visit with us. This has been a lot of fun. And again, the title of the book is
The Year St. Louis Became a Baseball Town.
And we will get that post-haste. That is very well done. Terry Lemons visiting with us. Please stop in and join us when you're back in the area. Will you do that?
Absolutely. Appreciate it. Thanks, gang.
Much good luck, Terry. Terry Lemons visiting with us from up in St. Louis. We'll take a quick time out on the starting lineup and be right back. And Scott Purrier will be visiting with us in just a few minutes from up at the Belle Reve Country Club. Had a lot of baseball that went on last night. We talked quite extensively about the Cardinals and the Reds, but the Royals got a big, big win. And Arthur, the guy who comes up with the key bases-loaded hit in the 8th inning, is a former Missouri Valley Conference product, John Rave.
Indeed. I mean, they scored 7 runs in the 8th inning to pull that one out. So they're really playing well right now. Now they're playing the A's and the Angels, but they've won 5 of their last 6. And kind of got that deal where, if they're close, they're going to find a way to win.
What is
John Rave last night, and I joked, John Sterling, the late great voice of the Yankees, he would say, and they're raving about John Rave.
How bad is that?
And that's what he would do.
That's exactly what he would have done. In regards to the series coming out, who did I know they played this afternoon, but who did they play this weekend?
The Tigers at home.
Detroit comes into Kauffman Stadium. This would be a very
big
interesting
series for Detroit as to whether they have any chance at all at the wild card.
Do they, in your opinion?
I don't think so. But yeah, I mean, they're right there. They could.
What do you think you're looking for out of this Royals team in the remainder of the season? What would you want to see as a fan going forward to give you hope for the future?
Well, that they're all healthy, which they kind of are now, except for, Reagans, who's out for forever probably. But the position players are healthy. They got Garcia back. They got Vinny back. Vinny hit a home run last night. They're both contributing. The starting pitching has been remarkably resilient, except for Lugo, who's just not very good at this point, but they won anyway. So, I mean, I just want to see what the team can do when they're close to 100% healthy.
I think you just hit on the key right there, at least in my opinion. Lugo has to be very close to the end of the line. He's been around forever and ever. And really, while Waka is a couple of years younger than Lugo, he's showing signs of that as well, although he's had some pretty good performances.
He's pitching really well. Made the All-Star team this year.
Yep.
And he leads Major League Baseball in innings pitched.
I'm interested to hear you say you feel like Reagan's maybe finished.
Well, he's had so many injuries. So, I'm going to not hold my breath as to his return. It's been really frustrating. Guy with so much talent, but he's just not been able to stay healthy. Is
there anything, to your knowledge, in Omaha or at Northwest Arkansas?
Well, Rockefort, I think.
Yeah, Rockefort, yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's hit 30 home runs at Double-A, so that's a position player. But, they badly need some more pop in the lineup at the big league level. But as far as pitchers are concerned, I don't know if anybody's close. They've got the Churio kid at High A, so he's a couple of years away.
I watched Rockefort play the other night. Not a real big kid at all.
No, not at all.
Which is surprising and impressive that he's able to generate the power that he does. That's pretty good. Can you see him in a row?
Jimmy Wynn, the toy cannon.
Yeah, that's it. Well, Jim Wynn did. That's exactly right. The toy cannon.
He was 5'8".
That's all he was. which, well, what was the name of the smaller player in that who was with the Royals and the Pittsburgh Pirates for a number of years?
Well, Freddie Patek.
Freddie Patek.
But he wasn't a power hitter.
No. He did have some home runs, but not a big power hitter at all. But now the name of why are these names slipping my mind? This is age that's coming up. Back in the 1930s, hit 58 home runs.
Jimmy Fox?
No, this is no National League. This is
Chuck Klein?
No, played for the Chicago Cubs. He's only 5'6". 5'6", 5'7", had 58 home runs in 1 year. Why can I not remember that name? Should. He also had 191 RBIs.
Oh, Hack Wilson?
Hack Wilson.
Hack Wilson.
Yeah, Hack Wilson.
Yeah, there you go.
Of course, not a very big guy at all. Had just very short and stocky, but he had a great amount of power, and that made the big difference. And he made it work. So size doesn't always mean everything. Are we, before we get in any further trouble here, are we ready for another timeout?
Yes, we are.
A quick break on the starting lineup, and we'll be back in just a second. And we are delighted to have you with us on the starting lineup as we approach the stretch run. Starting lineup brought to you by Play It Again Sports, by Swing Right Golf, by Citizens Bank of Rogersville, and by Marshfield Chevrolet. I'm Ned Reynolds along with
Maddox Ferdosovich.
And Art Hains.
Art, I want to ask you very quickly. I have opined, and I'm not pretending that this is correct in any way, but I really feel personally like Saturday's exhibition game, not just for the Chiefs, but for all these teams, number 2 and number 3, is probably the most important. Would you agree with that, where some of the veterans will see action?
Yeah, that normally is the case. The third game, they don't want to play them that close to the regular season, but might see some veterans this week more than any other of the preseason.
The Chiefs break camp today up in St. Joe. What kind of a difference does that make in them? You've been around them long enough. Does it really have any impact at all?
Well, I think they're glad for it to be over.
Yes.
And they get back to their homes and their normal lives. But, it's good for team building and bonding, and that's why they do it, to get them away from the distractions and just kind of focus on football and each other.
I notice in their itinerary that the Chiefs will not leave for Tampa, St. Petersburg, until Saturday morning, and the game's Saturday night. Mm-hmm, that's what they allege. It'll be a Saturday morning takeoff.
Now, I'd heard otherwise that they were going to leave on Friday, but maybe it's very unusual for them to. It's never that they fly the day of the game.
That's what I was going to ask you about, because I can't remember that ever happening before, but that's what it said on their itinerary. And maybe that was a mistake. Maybe that was AI or something like that.
Fake news.
Exactly. What do you expect to see from the Chiefs on Saturday night?
Well, I think we're still not going to see Mahomes.
No.
I'd like to see Monsieur Delane in there, now that he's fully practiced in pads, but I don't know if that's going to happen. I'd like to see a little more Kenneth Walker. We know what he can do. But, you always want to see some of the regulars get in there and get their feet wet a little bit.
And I hope that does happen, too, because you're right. They do need to get into the rhythm of things. And, heck, first game's coming up on the 14th of September. But coming up right now, however, is our co-host who is with us in I see the blue sky in the background, Purrier, but does that mean everything is dry and you're ready to play a little golf? And are you playing?
No, I'm not playing, and you could not have better weather in St. Louis on August 20th than we've got up here at Belle Reve Country Club today. Just phenomenal. That the guys who've never played an event here in the past, they're going to think this is what weather's like in St. Louis in August. It's not the case, but it's high of 83 today and sunny.
There's the key. Now, was there a practice round yesterday? Did they get some in?
Yeah, yesterday was Pro-Am Day, so all the pros that were here were required to play a 9-hole practice round. I guess they could pick front or back with teams of amateurs, and my son and his buddies, we were up here yesterday for it. We had fun because they had names of the participants in the Pro-Am. And so we started Googling what they did because the entry fee for those Pro-Am people had to be just ridiculous. I mean, to play with Scotty Scheffler and Rory and guys like that. And so everybody that we Googled and looked up was the head of something in St. Louis or owned a BMW dealership or something like that. It was a pretty fun thing to watch the pros play with the guys that were hacking around here at Belle Reve.
Nobody from down here?
No, I didn't see anybody we knew from that was playing in it. But, with a field of 50, they got them in and out. There was rain up here yesterday morning, and once it cleared out, they had about an hour delay on the Pro-Am stuff, but got them out and just a really – this is my first trip back here, I think, since they were back here, about 2018, I think, for one of the majors. But I'd been here when Payne played – and covered back then, and it just reminded me how long this course is. And I think one of my son's friends had his steps counter on, and I think we did about 5.5 miles yesterday around Belle Reve. Yeah, the old lower body's feeling it this morning a little bit.
Scott, I have a vague idea of where Belle Reve is, but you might tell us in what municipality. Is that Creve Coeur?
It is. It's at that is a town and country, that area as well, and right next to Belle Reve Country Club, Whitfield School is there, and we were joking that we ought to send our kids there and they could just come play at Belle Reve after school, But I think it's about a $40,000 a year tuition, so I think we backed off of that a little bit. But it's to give you a better idea. The Family Arena in St. Charles, where Drury had actually played the GLVC Championship tournament in basketball a couple times when I was over there. That is your main parking lot. So they shuttle people that park over there about a 10 to 15-minute drive by bus over here to Belle Reve because there's no parking around the course. But they do a great job of getting people in and out. And, St. Charles is, I think we were 5 minutes from downtown St. Charles and all the fun stuff here.
Scott, how would you describe the energy there at Belle Reve today?
Yesterday was a little more subdued because it was Pro-Am Day. I think today I've noticed more people, and it just seems like it's, golf is a very, unless it's the Ryder Cup, or Phoenix, it's a very polite crowd. People I think are just, it's almost like going to the zoo and gawking at animals when you see, there's Scotty and there's Rory, and we watched Scotty work on short putts. Exactly. Yeah. There's no glass to tap on here, which is one thing, but, and that was the cool thing too, was yesterday seeing some of the guys, like Victor Hovland signed everything for every kid that was anywhere near a rope. And he did that for not the 9 holes he played. And then there were guys like Xander Schauffele who said, I'll sign after the round, and you just kind of get a better feel for. So obviously we're pulling for Hovland here because he was one of those guys that, Colin Morikawa was the same way, just very, I guess fan friendly and signing everything. But so to answer your question, Maddox, it's just more of a kind of a golf crowd, relaxed. The action starts here in about 15 minutes with the first group off the tee, a little bit after 9 a.m. Last tee time, I think, is at 2 o'clock, which is one of the luxuries of having a 50-player field, is you could start later and finish earlier. And, no weather issues today at all in the forecast. So I don't think for the rest of the weekend. So it should be a great weekend of golf up here in St. Louis.
Have you made the decision what group you're going to follow?
We walked so much yesterday that I think we're of the mindset that we're going to plop down and let them come to us, but I mean, obviously, Scotty will have a big following, and Rory, and, I kind of watch Oberg, to see him a little bit more today. And I think the first pairing is JT and I can't remember who's Theegala, maybe the first. So every pairing you've got,
it is Theegala. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Every pairing today is somebody that, obviously, because they wouldn't be here if they hadn't done really well this year, to be in the top 50.
Arthur?
Scott, you might share with us the characteristics of the course. I imagine there being an older course in an established neighborhood, it's kind of tight.
It is, and it's long, and I'd forgotten that at Belle Reve. It may play almost to about 7,500 yards for this tournament. So your guys that can bomb it out there are going to have a little bit of an edge, but it's tight, and the fairways are just like we were joking yesterday. Like, I don't know how you could ever not hit a pure iron off these fairways, because it's better than most of our carpets in our houses, and stuff in terms of plush. But the rough is very punishing if you get out in it, and the ball nestles down in there. You're going to have trouble getting it out. And if you're watching the video, you can see the driving range behind me that the guy's kind of filtering out and getting ready to go here as well. But and this is not Southwind, where they played the FedEx last week in Memphis. This is a major championship course. And so, people thinking somebody's going to shoot 12, 14, 15 under and win this one, that's not going to happen. I think it'll be somebody that shoots around 10 or 11, maybe 12. If they can put together 4 rounds of 3 or 4 under par, I think they're going to be right there.
Have the greens taken a lot of water, to your knowledge?
They had some pretty heavy rain overnight, Tuesday to Wednesday, but they look like they're in perfect condition because it's not so hot they can actually shave them down and not risk losing them. But that was the thing, too, that it's kind of like when you go to Augusta and, for the first time, you don't realize the undulations in the greens until you go live and see it. Kind of like when I went to NASCAR with T-Bear and, those people that go see hockey live for the first time. And, we were watching Rory come in the 9, and he stuck an iron right up there, probably within 5 or 6 feet of the pin on a par 4, and he had the spin on it, rolled it back, and it ended up 50 feet down the hill. And so they're going to have to watch that because it will play like a major championship course because that's what Belle Reve is.
Maddox?
Scotty Scheffler is the clear-cut favorite to win here this weekend. How do you think the field stacks up against him?
I think a lot of it depends on what kind of start Scotty gets off to. If he shoots 3 or 4 under today, look out. But if he has one of those rounds like he's had several times this year where, he was even or 1 or 2 over and has to make up ground, I think that's going to give everybody confidence. But that's the thing. When you have the top 50 guys here and that's all that's in the field, it's awfully darn hard to figure out who's going to win the thing. You start with Scotty. Rory hasn't been playing well. You had Cam Young, who was so hot there for a while. Yeah, Oberg has been knocking on the door. Sam Burns, guys like that that have been playing well late are guys that I think that you're going to see hang around the whole week.
Arthur?
Well, that's fantastic. And now you'll trim it down to 30, I guess, for the end of the weekend for the championship?
Yeah. When Sunday's done, the top 30, not in this event, but in the FedEx Cup standings, will move on to Eastlake and Atlanta. And one of my son's friends was telling me this. I wasn't aware that. So they reward still the point finishers in the FedEx Cup standings for the season long, but you can also win the tournament. And, so you've got I think what do we say, Ned? $10 million. I don't know if that $10 million, to be honest with you, is for winning the final Cup standings or for winning the event. I need to look into that.
It's the final tournament. It's the one at Eastlake. The winner gets $10 million. But the PGA has a pool of $100 million that they divide to the point winners, and it's already been decided. The point winner it's locked up. Scotty Scheffler won it, and that prize is $33 million.
Wow. That's not bad. It's not a bad week of work, or a season of work.
It's not a bad lifetime of work in orbit.
Exactly, yeah. So a fun day, and I think they still had tickets available for tomorrow and maybe even on the weekend. But real easy drive up here. Just go to Family Arena in St. Charles Park. You jump on a bus, and you're right at the front gate. They drop you off right up near the front. So that's really a nice setup.
Are you coming back tonight?
And we are. Yeah, we're going to stay till probably mid to late afternoon and kind of get out before the rush back to the buses and back to Family Arena and just kind of hit the road. But I'll be in studio tomorrow morning.
When you mentioned the fact that this is close to 7,500 yards, and that's got to be a long trek indeed, do we have anything to your knowledge down here that even approaches that?
Probably no. I don't know where, if you played the tips at Hickory or Highland, I don't know if it'd be maybe pushing 7,200, something like that. But no, and then you look at this rough that's been here for however long Belle Reeve's been here, and it's the kind of rough that will just grab a ball, and and if you're in it, it'll just sink to the bottom. And so that was fun yesterday watching these guys. They were playing their ball as part of the Pro-Am competition, but then you'd see like Shoffley or somebody step off and drop a ball down into the rough and hit a couple shots just to get ready for that. So it will be a great test of the best players in the world.
Guys, any further questions from Mr. Spurrier?
One more for me. Scott, what advice would you give to somebody going to watch golf for the first time to get the most out of your experience?
Well, I mean, like yesterday we walked and we followed and we looked at the sheet. Today, we're just going to find a spot, plop down, and watch the guys come into one green and then watch them go to the next tee. I would say, there's merit to either one. If you've got a guy you want to follow, be prepared to walk 18 holes just like they are. But if you're coming and you just want to see all of them, find a shady spot that they've got grandstands here everywhere. Just plop down there and watch them come in group by group, because with pairing sheets today, you know who's coming and when they're coming, and that makes it awfully nice.
Arthur?
Well, and you can see the approach shots come in and the chipping and the putting, so you're seeing
Absolutely.
most of it if you're at a position that you mentioned.
Well,
yeah, and they've got a really nice setup around one tee box and 9 green and 10 tee that's unfortunately comes with a Tito's bar. So I've got to try to get my party group here away from there occasionally. But it also overlooks the putting green. So we spent time yesterday watching Scotty work on 6 to 10 footers for about 30 minutes after his round. So that's kind of the fun part you don't really see. We were watching. Who was it that was in? It was Wyndham Clark was in a practice bunker, and he was hitting shot after shot within 3 feet of the flag out of the practice bunker, and it was probably about a 30 or 40 yard shot. And you're just sitting there going, "This is how good these guys are." If we hit it and it hits practice green out of a bunker, we're happy. He does it 20 times in a row. That's the old saying, "These guys are good." That was a pretty good slogan because they meant it.
Well,
Talk about the tips, Scott. That's something that I would see with binoculars on my way to the white tees.
Yeah, and that was what was fun yesterday is you had a pro with 4 amateurs, and the pro would tee off from the tips, and the amateurs got to go up about 80 yards up closer, because unless you wanted about a 3-hour round for 9 holes, that was just the way it had to be to make it where they could compete. So.
Well, I love your philosophy, man, of plopping down and watching it. In my case, who the hell's going to help me up when it's time to?
Yeah, there's plenty of people like you, Ned, and there's all kinds of volunteers here everywhere. So,
beautiful.
Well, guys, we'll see you tomorrow, and thanks for the little jump in live here from Belle Reve. Looking forward to a great day of golf.
Have a good day. Have a good day. We'll see you tomorrow. Okay.
We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Scott Perger visiting with us from up at Belle Reve in St. Louis. That's where they tee off in just about, it's 8:49. 10 minutes from now will be the first group teeing off at the BMW Classic, the second jewel, so to speak, in the FedEx triumvirate of very lucrative golf tournaments. This is a pretty big deal. Arthur, do you follow that pretty closely?
Yeah, I will. Now that it's down to, 50 players, and they're all good.
Oh, yeah.
So, I would be inclined sure to watch this.
It'll be a lot of fun, but also what's a lot of fun, we got to determining there will be 2 preseason football games on tonight, and they've both got to be on TV, I would have to think. And so that'll take some of the viewing, and the red hot baseball races, which most of the games today will be today as opposed to tonight. So
of course, the golf's in the afternoon.
Correct.
The football will be at night.
So indeed, we have the Las Vegas Raiders visiting Houston, and we have the San Francisco 49ers and Chargers. Do we have one more break? One more break to do.
Yes.
What do we say we take it right now? You're listening to the starting lineup. Back in just a second. And interestingly enough, the St. Louis Blues will be starting their training camp here before too much longer. Their season opens October 2nd.
Wow.
Doesn't seem possible that ice hockey will be back with us that quickly.
It's just hard to imagine that with 90-degree weather outside. There's going to be some action out on the ice.
And Scott was waxing journalistically about the temperatures up at Del Reeve. He said it was 83 is going to be the high today. Don't count on that lasting, folks. It'll get warm again. Arthur, we've been through some really hot Septembers, and I know you can remember them very well.
Yeah, I can.
At
least, it's starting to but not everything's burned up. I mean, there was one year we played at Little Rock in the season opener, driving down through northern Arkansas. It looked like the moon.
Yep.
Everything was just brown.
I can recall another time when you and I were doing the games going to western Illinois where we'd had a drought and the corn crop was just dry. It had withered up and turned into nothing. In fact, that may have been our first trip up there.
Well, and with corn being from that country, hopefully the corn was made before it withered.
Could have been, yeah.
It doesn't matter about the stalk; it just matters about the ears. But yeah, you want to see. It's nice to see it nice and green.
We've also been through our share of bad weather too.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, at the same locale. And I know you'll remember this, sitting there in the press box, which was a cramped quarters, to say the very least.
Still is, I guess.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Gosh, yes. And it was so cold that day. The body heat generated by Hains and Reynolds was the warmth in that. Oh, and that's not a good thing.
Well, and you had to have that little trap door open to get any crowd noise at all down around our feet, so we got cold air blowing in there a little bit from that.
That was absolutely brutal. Well, speaking of brutal, we're out of time, folks, and we greatly appreciate your being with us. Ned Reynolds along with
Maddox Fedosevich.
Art Hains.
A little bit later on 102.1, the Cardinals will play the Cincinnati Reds. That'll be coming up this afternoon, and a big day of competition going on, so we invite you to stay right where you are. And we'll be back tomorrow at the same time.
See ya.